The sun beat down relentlessly on the barren desert, creating waves of heat that shimmered in the distance. In this unforgiving landscape, a prospector trudged through the sand, his worn boots leaving faint prints behind. He was a rugged man, weathered by years of searching for gold. His face was lined with determination, each crease telling a story of struggle and perseverance. A dusty hat shielded his eyes from the glaring sun, but nothing could hide the solitude that surrounded him. With each step, he clutched a battered pickaxe tightly in one hand, while his other hand rested lightly on an old leather satchel, a reminder of the dreams he once held dear. Water was scarce in this arid land, and he had learned to savor every precious drop. The prospect of finding gold filled him with hope, but the reality of each day weighed heavily on his heart. As he climbed over a rocky ridge, he paused to scan the horizon. The vast emptiness echoed his feelings of isolation, but deep down, he knew he had to keep going. For him, giving up was not an option. Survival meant more than just riches. It meant holding on to the flicker of hope that kept him moving forward in this desolate world. The landscape stretched out endlessly, a dry expanse punctuated by jagged rocks and sparse vegetation. Sunlight danced on the surface of the ground, creating mirages that tricked the eye into believing there was water just ahead. For travelers in this harsh environment, each step felt heavy with the knowledge that water was a precious commodity, often just a memory away. The air was thick with tension, as every wanderer knew that dehydration could strike swiftly. The prospector could feel it too, his throat was parched, and he had already rationed his dwindling supply of water. The scorching heat made time seem to slow as he navigated through the blazing sands, scanning for signs of life or any hint of nearby springs. With every mile drawn out in sweat and grit, urgency gripped him tightly like an iron band. He understood that the desert did not discriminate, it demanded respect and offered little in return. Other travelers might be closer than they appeared, their desperation reflected in tired eyes and sunburned skin. Each encounter carried a risk, trust in such a barren place felt like a luxury few could afford. In this relentless heat, survival depended on more than just physical strength, it required courage to share what little one had left. As the prospector trudged along the sun-baked earth, he suddenly spotted a figure stumbling toward him. A weary stranger emerged from the haze, his sunburned skin glistening with sweat, and his eyes wide with desperation. The prospector's heart sank, he could see the man was struggling, and it was clear that he had been wandering for far too long without water. The stranger approached slowly, his voice hoarse as he gasped, "Please. I need water." The prospector's mind raced. He glanced at his own water supply, only a small amount left, barely enough to keep him alive for another day. It felt like an impossible choice, to share what little he had or to preserve it for himself. Inside, the prospector wrestled with doubt and empathy. He knew the dangers of this unforgiving land and understood how easily one could perish from thirst. Yet, there was a flicker of compassion within him that urged him to help. The stranger's plight stirred something deep in his heart, a reminder of shared humanity in a world that often felt so stark and lonely. Caught between survival and kindness, the prospector took a deep breath, weighing the risks as he prepared to make his decision. After a moment of hesitation, the prospector's heart ultimately guided his decision. He unscrewed the cap from his canteen and carefully tilted it toward the stranger, allowing a few precious drops to trickle into his palm. The weary man's eyes widened with gratitude as he cupped the water, bringing it to his lips with trembling hands. "Thank you," the stranger gasped between sips, each drop seeming to revive him. The prospector watched closely, feeling a strange warmth spread through him despite the scorching heat surrounding them. In that moment, it became clear that kindness could flourish even in the most difficult circumstances. As the stranger drank, the prospector realized that his act of sharing was more than just survival, it was a connection, a bond formed in a desolate landscape where humanity often felt lost. With every sip taken, he felt a sense of relief wash over him. The water, though limited, carried a true essence of life and compassion. Yet as much as he longed to help further, worry crept back into his mind. Would this gesture come back to haunt him? Still, he held fast to the belief that moments of sacrifice could illuminate even the darkest paths in life. In this arid world, he had chosen to be a beacon of hope instead of despair. As the stranger finished the last drops of water, he looked up at the prospector with eyes shimmering with appreciation. "You saved my life," he said, his voice still shaky. "You're a good man, and I owe you one." The prospector nodded, feeling a mix of relief and pride, but something in the stranger's tone made him uneasy. The way the stranger spoke had an undertone that hinted at more than just gratitude. "I know this desert has a way of testing us," the stranger continued, his expression shifting to a more serious one. "If you ever find yourself in need of help, I can return the favor." The prospector's instincts pricked sharply. This wasn't just a simple expression of thanks, he felt an unspoken weight behind the words. Though grateful for the kindness he had shown, the prospector couldn't shake off a nagging suspicion. Who was this man really? Was he genuinely thankful, or was there an ulterior motive lurking beneath the surface? The desert had taught him to be cautious, and as he studied the stranger's face, he couldn't help but wonder if his act of compassion might have unwittingly invited danger into his life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, the prospector found himself alone once more in the vast desert. Night was creeping in fast, bringing a chilling breeze that whispered through the rocky landscape. He sat on a small outcropping, gazing up at the twinkling stars as they began to emerge, but his mind was clouded with worries. He reflected on his choice to share his last water with the stranger. Had he been foolish? The stranger's words echoed in his head, leaving an unsettling feeling that something lay beneath them. All his life, the prospector had learned to be wary, yet he had let compassion overcome his common sense. Now, faced with the vast emptiness around him, he questioned whether his kindness had invited trouble. As darkness deepened, he felt lost in a world where survival hinged on the choices one made. Was the stranger genuinely grateful, or had he merely been biding time to reveal his true intentions? Every creaking sound of the desert night sent a thrill of panic through him. Shadows danced in the distance, and in that isolation, paranoia flared like the stars above. How would he protect himself if danger approached? Just as the prospector's thoughts swirled in uncertainty, a movement caught his eye. Emerging from the shadows of dusk was a silhouette, sharp against the fading light. The figure was a woman, her stance resolute and unmistakably tense. As she stepped closer, the prospector's heart raced. She held a pistol drawn, aimed cautiously ahead. The glow of the last remnants of daylight illuminated her features just enough for him to recognize the stranger's wife. Her expression was fierce, and determination radiated from her as she scanned the area. It was clear that she had come searching for her husband, but now, with a weapon in hand and suspicion on her face, the atmosphere thickened with tension. "Where is he?" she demanded, her voice steady but laced with urgency. The prospector felt his throat tighten. He had not anticipated this encounter. He stood slowly, hands raised slightly in a gesture of peace. He didn't want to provoke her fear or anger. As they locked eyes, he sensed that she was not just worried about her husband's well-being, there was something more at stake here. The desert night had transformed from a moment of reflection into one of potential confrontation, raising questions about loyalty and trust in a world where survival could turn deadly in an instant. The tension in the air crackled like distant thunder as the stranger's wife stepped closer, her pistol unwavering. "What happened to my husband?" she demanded, her voice sharp and filled with urgency. The prospector's heart pounded as he struggled to find the right words, knowing that any misstep could escalate the situation further. "Ma'am, he began, raising his hand slightly in an attempt to show he meant no harm. "I found him wandering in the desert. He was thirsty, desperate for water." Her eyes narrowed, and he could see the conflicting emotions playing across her face, fear, anger, and a fierce protectiveness for her husband. "Desperate enough to seek help from you," she snapped. He would never trust just anyone. The accusation hung heavy between them, intensifying the already fragile atmosphere. What did she really know about him? The prospector felt a wave of frustration wash over him. He had acted out of kindness, yet now that kindness felt like a trap. "I didn't mean any harm," he insisted, his voice steady despite the rising panic within him. "I only gave him my last water." As they locked eyes, both realized this encounter could end in violence or understanding, their fates intertwined in that desert darkness. The prospector took a cautious step forward, trying to convey sincerity despite the weapon trained on him. "Please, listen," he said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "I found your husband alone in the desert, struggling and desperate for water. I didn't know what else to do, no one should suffer like that out here." The woman's grip on the pistol remained firm, but her expression flickered slightly, revealing a hint of uncertainty. "You expect me to believe you?" she challenged, her eyes searching his face for signs of deception. Yet, all the prospector could offer was his honesty, a rare commodity in a world where trust teetered on the brink. "I swear I meant no harm," he continued, feeling the weight of her gaze press against him like the heat of the day. "I gave him my last water because it was the right thing to do. It wasn't a trap, I just wanted to help." The desert air around them felt charged with tension as they stood locked in this moment, both acutely aware of how quickly kindness could turn to distrust. The prospector could sense the danger of her weapon, but he also hoped that his words might break through her fear and lead them both to a clearer understanding of their predicament. The tension between the prospector and the stranger's wife reached a boiling point as emotions ran high. She stepped closer, her voice trembling with anger and fear. "You think you can just take it upon yourself to help my husband?" Her words cut through the night air like a knife, filled with accusation. "No," the prospector replied fiercely, desperation in his voice. "I didn't take anything. I offered him water because it was the right thing to do." He could feel the weight of her gaze, a mixture of skepticism and vulnerability wrestling within her. For a moment, time seemed to stand still as they both grappled with the misunderstandings that had led them here. The prospector recognized her pain, her husband's life was at stake, and here she was, facing a stranger who had been thrust into a situation he never intended to complicate. "I swear I meant no harm," he insisted, hoping to pierce through her defenses. "We are both just trying to survive out here." Her grip on the pistol wavered slightly as her expression softened just enough for him to see the flicker of doubt. In that instant, decisions loomed large before them. Would they find common ground or would fear drive them apart? The desert night hung heavy with uncertainty as they stood on the precipice of connection or conflict. As the silence stretched between them, the prospector took a deep breath, searching for a way to break through the tension. "Look," he said softly, "I understand your fear. We both know what it's like to fight against the elements out here. I've lost too many friends to this desert." His voice held a note of shared pain that seemed to resonate with her. The woman hesitated, her grip on the pistol wavering as she listened. "You don't know my struggle," she replied, though the edge in her voice began to dull. "I've watched helplessly as my husband fought against thirst and despair. I thought I'd lost him." The prospector nodded, feeling a connection spark in the shared acknowledgement of their hardships. "I did what I could because I'd want someone to do the same for me if I were in that position." Finally, after what felt like an eternity, she lowered her weapon slightly, her expression softening as empathy replaced suspicion. "Maybe I misjudged you," she admitted quietly. In that moment, walls of distrust began to crumble as they found common ground in their experiences of loss and survival. Trust was slowly built between them, revealing the innate humanity that bound them together, even amidst fear and uncertainty in the unforgiving desert night. As the desert night enveloped them, a profound sense of kinship emerged between the prospector and the stranger's wife. In a world where survival often meant prioritizing one's own need over another's, their encounter served as a powerful reminder of the strength found in compassion and understanding. The harsh conditions of their environment had initially clouded their judgment with fear and suspicion, masking the shared struggles they faced. Trust, once fractured by doubt, began to mend as they exchanged stories of loss and resilience. The prospector spoke of friends he had lost to the unforgiving desert, while she shared her fears for her husband's safety. In opening up to each other, they realized that humanity could thrive even amid adversity. Together, they forged a bond rooted in empathy and respect, shining a light on the importance of looking beyond one's own plight. As fragile as it was, that connection sparked hope, a belief that kindness could emerge from desperation. The desert might still be relentless and unforgiving, but in their hearts, they carried a newfound sense of solidarity that reminded them they were not alone in their fight for survival. In the darkest moments, it was this simple truth that illuminated their path forward.